Good evening. I'd like to welcome everybody to our Tuesday meeting, Tuesday, July 5th. Happy July 4th belatedly. I'd like to go ahead and call our meeting to order with the invocation of the pledge by Councilwoman Bowers, please.
As we gather, we are reminded that despite our differences, we are linked by our common humanity. May we work together to move our community forward in a spirit of mutual respect and common decency, and in doing so, we showcase what is best about our community, our state, and our nation. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, Jeremy, can you please call the roll?
Angelou.
Here.
Bowers.
Here.
McGregor.
Here.
Padova.
Here.
Renner.
Here.
Schnetzer.
Present.
Weaver.
Here.
All right, thank you. Item B, additions or corrections to the agenda. Before I pull my colleagues, I do have one. Under presentations, the mayor and her staff are going to move and wrap up the Department of Parks Recreation presentation next week, which was already scheduled, so we're just going to bundle it over there. But number two, Department of Planning rental registration update is still occurring. Anybody else have any additions or corrections to our agenda? Okay. Moving on. Item C, hearing of visitors. I do have one. Kathy McCorkle. And Ms. McCorkle, before you get started, you know you have to state your name and address for the record, and you do have 3 minutes.
I have every week. I've done that every
I
week.
understand. For the record, I have to say it.
Okay. Kathy McCorkle, 677 Piccadilly Court, Gahanna, Ohio. Good evening. Comments by a council person made at the end of the June 21st council meeting about the recently created anti-American Marxist holiday of June 19th prompted me to share the following fact about our American history. As our Constitution was being forged by our God-fearing founding fathers, did you know that they got the idea of our 3 branches of government, legislative, executive, and judicial, from the Bible? The book of Isaiah, chapter 33, verse 22 says, "For the Lord is our judge, the Lord is our lawgiver, the Lord is our king. It is he who will save us." See, all 3 branches of our government are right here in this one Bible verse. Reference to our judge is the judicial branch. Reference to our lawgiver is the legislative branch. Reference to our king is the executive branch. America was created as a Christian nation, and as most all founding fathers were predominantly of the Judeo-Christian faith, they knew the Bible very well. Surely God was watching over the building of the freest nation on earth, America. And because of that, all Americans of all races have freedom, equality, and the blessings of God if they so choose to walk in them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other additional hearing of visitors before I move on? Okay, thank you. Item D, presentations. Madam Mayor, the floor is yours.
Actually, I'm going to invite Director Blackford, our Director of Planning, to come up and give a summary of where we are with the rental registration program. If council recalls, we had the rental registration program was implemented a few years ago. We put a hiatus of sorts on the rental registration program in 2020 as it needed further legal evaluation with regard to how it was being applied and what the terms of the rental registration code were at that time. We spent a significant amount of time through 2020, I believe it was, reevaluating that program, presented code changes to council and those were adopted by council. And then this first quarter of 2022 was the first year that those new code changes were implemented and registration was required. So with that, just wanted to provide council with an update as to where we are with that rental registration program to date.
Thanks, Mayor. Yeah, I was going to give a history. It looks like most of it was covered. The two things I would add is that there's two major changes, in my opinion, of this program from today when it was first implemented. One was part of the zoning code, the code rewrite. It went from an annual program to a biannual, so every other year instead of every year. So that's a huge reduction on the paperwork. I'll get into what that looks like with this program. And also, what's also changed is that we're now able to accept applications through our website if folks so choose so that really decreases our administrative burden as well. So going through the registration and permit process here tonight, there's really 5 steps. It's the application is the first step. That's folks going and filling out the paperwork, submitting it online or in person to staff. The registration process, that's us really evaluating the applications to make sure all the information is complete. Then we go out and we perform an inspection. That's actually going on site, looking for any inconsistencies with the various codes. If there are violations, then those need to be corrected, and then at the conclusion of that, they would receive a permit. So if you like data, the next 5 slides hopefully will be of some interest. By the numbers here, we're looking at a 4-month period of February 15th through June 15th, so that's about a month before the program. There was a requirement to register, so that's really when we were kicking things off and really starting to send out notices and things of that nature. So looking at a 4-month period or 17 weeks, there's been a lot of talk about just how many rental properties there are. So far, we have about just under 700 properties that we've been able to identify. About 78% of those have registered. Now, that's in 3 months of the deadline. The deadline was March 15th, but again, we started sending out notices. Not sure what happened to my slide. It still shows on my computer, but let's see here.
We have it.
Still have it? All right, I don't know. Am I working this? Okay. So 78% of those properties within a 4-month time period or 3 months of when the program had that due date of March 15th have registered. So again, that's 1 out of 4 we're still chasing down, trying to get them to just register for this program. So how much work is involved in chasing these down? Well, again, this is just a 4-month period of really when we went live. It's 1,835 staff hours. There's about 8 different people within the department that's worked on this program. There's 10 folks total, so that gives you some indication of how much involvement there is. So again, that's about 46 weeks worth of staff work within a 4-month period. I will say that I wasn't involved in the original implementation and the thought process, but I know one of the things that were talked about back in 2017, 2018 was hiring an additional code enforcement officer to implement this program. I can tell you that it's absolutely impossible for one person to implement this program. There's far more work that's involved in this. So there's really 3 processes or steps where we're talking about with the time. There's the administration, which is really, the paperwork, phone calls with folks. There's the inspection, which is 31%. So in theory, that's our time out there in the field. And then 12% is the violations. That's us trying to track people down and get them to fill out information that might be incomplete or rectify some of their issues. So again, the field work really should be inspections, which again is only about 30% of our time. Out of that time, 70% of that is paperwork. So when you start doing the math, less than 10% of our time is actually spent in the field with this program. 90% of it, more than 90% is administrative. Program revenue, we changed the fee structure around considerably. I guess that was another major change. We've got total just under $100,000, and about 3/4 of that is with our single-family properties. I think one of the good changes with the program is it's going to biannual. It's a $150 fee for a 2-year program. So that works out to $6.25 a month. So it's not a huge cost to burden, despite some of the feedback that we have received. So we started going out and we started doing inspections of properties. We haven't been able to inspect that many, again, because most of our time's been spent with the paperwork. But out of the 183 properties that we've looked at, just over half of those passed in their first inspection, meaning that there's no violations that were found. And then if we look at what kind of violations we're finding, most of the properties have 1 or 2 violations, which would be considered minor violations. Our code enforcement officers, that's anecdotal. We have not found one serious violation. Most common is gutters and downspouts. That's pretty common for rental and non-rental properties. Fascia, you can see in the bottom corner there, some of those issues. Handrails, that's really a little bit of a loose handrail, not like a safety concern, but something that just needs to be tightened up and addressed. And then clutter, again, that's a common one that we see, whether it's a rental property or not. So program feedback. Spoiler alert, it's not positive. But then again, people don't usually stop and share their positive feedback about stuff. So some of the feedback we're hearing from folks, rental owners feel that they are being unfairly targeted. And that's a real common one. It's, why are you treating me differently than my neighbor? I'm a single-family house, they're a single-family house. My house is in better shape than theirs, so why aren't they required to register? That's a common one. Fees being charged when some rental owners are already struggling financially. We hear this one quite a bit about the pandemic era policies, made it really hard to evict folks that weren't paying their rents. Again, when you do the math, though, this program really, at least for single family, only equates to $6.25 a month. Some folks are using that, I think, as an excuse to, increase rents. Minor violations have the potential to become major repair expenses. That is very, very true. The gutter and downspouts, that's a common one. I know from some folks on staff who aren't subject to this program or anything, but they've had some downspout issues. That's a 5-figure fix. So even if your downspout isn't connected to the streets, you have to do some underground work. Even if it's not causing any type of drainage issue, it's not consistent with code. So you're talking about a 5-figure fix on something that really isn't creating any type of issue. That's the feedback we're hearing. This last one is definitely true. Violations not visible from the right-of-way are being nitpicked. One of the major differences between this program and normal code enforcement action is that this program allows us to go on the property. Normally, code enforcement can go on a sidewalk and up to the front door. They're not allowed to traverse your property, but with this program, we are. So a lot of the feedback we're getting is no one's complaining, no one can see it, but yet I've got to make, repairs to something. So, understand their frustration. But again, it is a code violation. We're not pulling these out of thin air. Rental properties are being held to a higher standard than owner-occupied homes. I would agree with that, just from what I had stated about how code enforcement, where they can and can't go. This program allows us to touch things, go on property, go in backyards. I've been out on inspections. I think the vast majority, I think we'd estimate about 90% of the violations that we're finding are from being able to traverse the property. They're not visible from the right-of-way. So that's some of the feedback. Some more feedback. Inspection seen as an infringement on the rights of privacy. We have some folks who just flat out say on their applications, you're not allowed to go on my property. Won't get into all that legal kind of stuff, but folks specifically say you're not allowed to come out on our property. And then this last one, inspections interfere with landlord-tenant relationships. That's definitely true. I don't feel too sorry for folks if they're in violating some agreement they have with the landlord, but there have been times where we're finding things and have to report it, and it's causing some friction between landlords and tenants. Again, rent being raised, but again, it's a very nominal fee associated with this. Staff challenges, this is the last slide. And I believe when this program was created, it was thought that the Franklin County Auditor's website was going to be the holy grail for finding rentals and that, and it's a great starting point. but about 1/3 of all the listings we found on the auditor's website aren't accurate. So there's a huge amount of, again, administrative work that has to be done in order to cross-check to make sure these properties are actually rental properties. Sometimes it's pretty easy because it'll be a garage. And it's like, that's not a dwelling and that. But again, about 1/3 of the data is incorrect on the auditor's website for our purposes. Safety concerns, code enforcement is not a job I would ever want to do. Glad we have 3 very talented, hardworking individuals in that. They get threatened on pretty much a weekly basis, and this is ramping it up a notch because they're actually going out in people's yards in their, and that's a little bit of a different situation. Condensed application period every other year creates a busy season. That's part of what that data was saying. Again, in a 17-week period, we had 46 weeks worth of work that had to be done. So this is not a one program, and that is because we require, at this point, about 700 different properties to register within a few month window. That's a lot of paperwork. That's a lot of interactions that we're having with folks. So again, that creates sort of a busy season, and that busy season does prevent us from doing the last bullet there, proactive enforcement. Forget about it. I mean, I'm just going to be real honest with you. We cannot do proactive enforcement when we have 2.5 people basically a week in the office working on the rental program. So those are some highlights of the program, where we're at after about 4 months of actually being live and trying to implement it. I'm available for any questions if you have any, or I can go home for the evening. Choice is yours.
Oh, we're going to have to keep him.
Oh, yeah.
Ms. McGregor?
It's heavy with the paperwork now, but I mean, it's new. Do you think that is going to lessen as time goes on?
Yeah, that's a great question. I do think there will be a modest decrease in that, but I will tell you that it's something that will always be the bulk of this program. It's going to be paperwork. I mean, there were a lot of simplifications to the program from the original concept to now that I think helped. We've streamlined our applications. It's every other year instead of every year. So that helps reduce the administrative side of things. But I will say, no matter what permit or any type of application process I've ever been involved in, getting accurate information from the applicant is extremely challenging. And what's different about this program is, most of what the Department of Planning does, which is permitting, people need a permit, so they come to us. So we sort of have them where they need to provide us with accurate information. This program's a little bit different. We're going out to them saying, we need stuff from you. Their tenant's still going to live there, so it's a little bit harder to get corrected information, and it's very rare to get something submitted. Even though it's pretty basic information, there's not a high success rate of people submitting complete applications. So it should go down some, but it'll always be a significant part of the program.
Is there a way to maybe after the first couple years to stagger the registration, like a third this quarter or a third of this year, a third later? And
I believe that would be, and that's already been discussed a little bit, briefly internally. I would agree with that. I think one nice thing about Gahanna is whether you want to do north-south or east-west, it's kind of split kind of nice geographically with like 4 quadrants. You could do, east of Hamilton Road, even number years, west, odd number. That would make it a little bit less of a busy season because we're roughly cutting that down in half. So I would see that as being a benefit to the program.
thank you.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I guess I kind of had some similar questions to Mrs. McGregor. I appreciate, you kind of updating us and giving us an overview of some of the challenges of the program. So I'd be interested in the department's suggestions for fixes to some of these obstacles, like changing the application, staggering the application period, or splitting it somehow, or extending it to triennially. So we'll look forward to hearing that from the department. And I guess the other question I had was looking at how are we communicating why the program is important to our owners, to our landlords? Why does it matter? Why does it matter to your department? And why does it matter to us as a community? So looking at kind of that sort of, that sharing of that information.
Right now? Or is that like future? I'm not sure what are you asking for something right now, because it's in the code. You know, code enforcement officers aren't as skilled with some of these conversations as elected officials. So that's not usually a conversation we try to really engage in.
Well, I would also submit that the information that they receive when they receive the registration form has the preamble to the code that states why the code was created in the first place.
Okay.
So
Okay.
that is basically how the letter begins, and the notice that you need to register your property. It is communicating the exact language from the code that details the reason for the implementation.
Yeah, so I think creating that community buy-in, creating more awareness as to why it's important, and I guess what I'm saying is, when you want to come forward to us with proposed solutions versus doing it tonight.
Yeah, we have those conversations. We've yet to receive any positive feedback after relaying that information.
Okay.
Wanted to chase down some of the first comments and some of the later that you had in your slide. I think it's, all of us, I think, have been challenged by some of the more vocal landlords and landowners, and they making those comments to us that we are treating the differences with these properties versus the rest of us. In fact, we had one that challenged and said that they were going to go drive around to each of our homes, and okay, go ahead, it's public. So, and then the other comment about entering in and disturbing that relationship between the landlord and the tenant. So my overall question then is, certainly this cannot be new, right? What we did was we didn't create a new wheel. We copied in something that's happened other places, right? So
I don't know the answer to that. I wasn't involved in the creation.
Okay,
of the,
well, so my
Yeah.
question really isn't about the creation. It's really about, this can't be a new thing. So what is the response? Are we treating them differently? In my mind, always, I thought that we weren't, but
Do you want my honest feedback on
Yes.
that? Yes,
Yes.
absolutely. We're treating them differently. Yes. And the reason why is that this program allows us access to the property that we can't get elsewhere. So whether we think that that's a good idea or not, that's what I'm not here to debate. But
Yeah.
in my world of doing this in my whole entire adult life, yes, we are absolutely treating this differently.
and are we disturbing a landlord-tenant a relationship?
I would say some of the feedback we have on here has more merit than others, and I don't believe that that has a huge merit to it, because, again, if you're violating your lease, you know, that's, you know, sorry that we pointed that out, because ultimately it's the homeowner that, you know, the information goes to. So if you're harboring, you know, ducks or something in your yard and that's a violation of code, they're going to find out. Now, that does probably create some friction, but it's also you're doing something you're not supposed to.
Right.
So again, I think that one has less merit. We included it because that's something we hear quite a bit.
Okay.
But I would say that probably, in my firsthand experience, has maybe a little bit less validity than some of the other points.
Okay. Well, I appreciate this, because then it helps me know where I need to move in the space when I'm, you know, rebutting some of these accusations. So, yes. Oh, Mr. Weaver.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, Director. Appreciate the presentation. I think piggybacking off of Council President's question, the Council didn't reinvent the wheel here. This is based off of a model in other communities, I'm assuming?
I can't answer that. I wasn't involved in the program.
No, we are not the only community.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Mr. Spencer.
Yeah, specifically to the point about traversing the property, and maybe there's been some change to the application of this program in the various reforms that had occurred through the years, but my recollection was that the expectation was that code enforcement would view from the public right-of-way, whatever they could from that vantage point. And so, I mean, I guess that's just kind of a statement, not necessarily a question. I don't know if there had been changes to the code. Again, this had been reformed, I think, a couple of times through the years. So that's a bit of new information for me personally, is that, again, I thought they were simply to view it from the public right-of-way, whatever they could see from the exterior, as opposed to going on to the property or.
I know that was a statement, not a question, but it's what I've always heard, and I haven't been involved until like the last year, was that the intent was to go on property. If we couldn't or didn't, then I would say we're treating folks equitably. You know, it's a fair treatment of ownership versus rentals, or it's a much more of a fair approach. So that difference to me is why it's maybe not fair in some people's eyes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Oh, Ms. Padova.
So going onto the property, that just started when?
Well, I believe this was the first year was really implemented this program. I think it started to roll out in 2020, and then I don't know if it was pandemic or what, but it kind of stopped. So I think this is the first time really that there's been any inspections done. If there were any done, a couple of years ago, it was very minor in nature, the number of inspections.
Okay. And so if they were doing more of like a drive-by rather than going onto the property, would that, you said that you feel that would make it more equitable, would it also help with the staffing issues?
It's still, in my opinion, a very administrative-heavy program. Generally speaking, code enforcement officers are maybe out in the field 70% of the time, 30% of the time in the office doing paperwork. This program's like a 90-10, and it probably will come down where the inspections are a little bit more a part of it as we kind of ease in from the rush of applications. But I believe the thought process was perhaps the first go around that there were going to be more drive-by inspections. And I can just tell you anecdotally that about 90% of what we found so far this year would not have been visible from the right-of-way or the sidewalk. There are some properties. I went out one morning with code enforcement and tagged along to see how some of these things were going. And there's some properties, there's a house, I had no idea was even there. You can't see it from the right-of-way. You can see a chimney. So, obviously that inspection from the right-of-way was vastly different than, traversing the property and that.
Were you guys expecting the rate of like passing the inspection to be as low?
I think that's probably higher than most people may have thought. That's a good question. I don't know what the expectations were on what the pass rate is. I don't know. That's probably about maybe what I would have guessed, but it was probably just be a dumb guess on my part, dumb luck if I got that right. But yeah, historically, we don't have a whole bunch of issues with rentals. Code enforcement doesn't.
Okay. Are you able to go back to the slide that had the graph on it of how many single families and, back one.
Did I go too far?
Yeah, the one with the bar graph. Right there. So the 26 multifamily residences, that's 26
Those are 26 properties,
units.
correct,
Okay.
correct. So I don't
And
know
then-
what that unit count is, but I'm sure it's probably
Okay.
that times.
And then the 506, that's units, correct?
Yes, that would be individual properties.
Okay.
So, yeah, the property is going to be skewed. Again, it's not the unit total, it's property. So it's going to be skewed very heavy towards single family. But again, out of those 700, there's a lot more properties that are going to be single family, not necessarily more units.
Okay. I think that's all. Thanks.
All right, great. Thank you all very much. Appreciate it.
Oh, wait, I think you have one follow-up.
Just a follow-up question, I think from the conversation, especially as it related to kind of going into the property. I wasn't on council at the time that this was passed, but I recall the conversations, and there was, I think, there was always an intention that there would be an annual inspection of each unit or each, at least, property, and however many units needed to be a sample size for a larger scale property. And if I recall correctly, a lot of the conversation was around ensuring that rental units were were appropriate, were safe for tenants, and that they were meeting expectations, community expectations for tenants. So I think, if I remember the conversation correctly, there was always an intention to go onto the property and potentially into the property. And that was kind of by design. And I believe that that is consistent with our neighboring communities as well.
Again, I wasn't involved, so I can't say too much, but what I recall is that it was to go on property, always was. But again, I wasn't intimately involved, so I should,
So
not an expert.
kind of as a correct, I wasn't intimately involved either. I was an observer at
But I
that
believe-
point in time.
I would agree with you,
Eh,
your recollection.
Okay, good. And so it's one inspection per year, or have we changed that now since it's a 2-year period, that it's one inspection biannually?
One inspection in order to receive the permit. So, if you fail those half that are failing, it might take 2, 3, 4 inspections, depending on, like the time I rode out, we went out and did an inspection because we were in the area. Turns out they didn't do any of the 5 violations, and that was on probably one of our largest properties in that. So it might take a few actual site visits, but once you get that permit, once you're up to code, that permit would be good for up until like December 31st of 2023. So it's a one time in that 2-year cycle.
Okay.
Are we going out there? Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
So we're still in kind of a nascent phase of actually getting the rental inspection, rental registration up and running? Okay.
Yep.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Mr. Blackford, I just wanted to say thank you very much for this update and actually handling the battery of questions and comments that we've had. I'm very
pleasure. That's what
proud
I'm here for.
of the work that you're doing, and I'm very proud of our program, so thank you.
Well, thank you. Those kind words mean a lot. I'll share it with staff. Thank you.
Understand. Thank you.
If I could respond to Councilman Weaver's question, I believe you had asked whether or not this code was precipitated or based upon other codes in other jurisdictions. And the answer is yes, at least the current version of this code. I can't speak to the prior version, but the current version of the code that was adopted officially by council in November of 2020 was the result of looking at multiple other jurisdictions that had valid rental registration programs in place, including the city of Columbus. So I know that, and I can look to and defer to the city attorney because he did a lot of that research in looking at other jurisdictions. But what we currently have in place was based on looking at other areas that had effective programs in place.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. Good, thank you. Item E, consent agenda. Do I have a motion to adopt the consent agenda as published? Have a first by Ms. Angelou. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second by Ms. Bowers. Any discussion? Jeremy, please call the roll.
Angelou,
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
McGregor,
Yes.
Padova,
Yes.
Renner,
Yes.
Schnetzer,
Yes.
Weaver.
Yes.
Thank you. Item F, correspondence and actions. Mr. Clerk, do you have anything?
Nothing tonight.
Thank you. Council colleagues, do we have anything to share? Okay, thank you. Item G, representatives. Community Improvement Corporation, I did state that I would actually give you a little bit better report than what we had. June 21st, and we had a meeting our regular council meeting. But if you recall, June 21st, the CIC met with council. That was the first of a semi-annual meeting with council. The meeting was at 7:30 in the morning at the municipal golf course. The board president, Betty Collins, welcomed everyone, the council being there, and asked CIC trustees and council members to give a brief introduction of themselves and professional backgrounds and motivations to why we're involved in serving in such a way. The CIC was actually reviewed, the role of CIC and the provisions with revised code, Ohio Revised Code, specifically C 1724.01 and 1724.09. Moving on, the May financials were highlighted, and CIC Treasurer Kessler reported that the CIC's line of credit balance of just under 692,000 has been repaid down to zero due to reimbursement from the city. Also, we had Mr. Kessler introduced Amanda Nels, who is the CIC liaison from the local CPA firm, Leppert and Company, who reviewed the 2021 CIC year-end financials. Trying to decipher my notes. Our mayor gave both the update about the Economic Development Forum, which she did for council, and also the town hall meeting of June 9th. Planning Committee had discussed about that there are applications. There's one in particular about Sheetz Gas Station, and mentioned about the developing progress at Walnut Crescent. Moving on, development also talked about, Mr. Strum did mention that, again, that due to the Intel announcement, he and his office are getting a lot of calls about interested businesses setting up in Gahanna. There is an offer from the Lupus Project that they are considering, and it would provide many new medical jobs. CIC did go into executive session under revised code 121.22G2 at 8:41 to discuss a real estate matter. We came out of executive session at 8:55 and then concluded the meeting at 8:59. Our next meeting will be Tuesday, July 19th at 8 a.m. in the City Hall committee rooms. Mid-Ohio Regional Planning Commission, Ms. Angelou.
Thank you. We have no meetings this month. This is sort of our little vacation. I was really happy to be able to at least come to a portion of the 56th Annual Conference from NARC, which is the first time it's ever been in the city of, the state of Ohio, but in Columbus, Ohio. And it was truly amazing. I was there on a Friday evening with a lot of the people that were coming in from out of town, and then the next day there were things going on. Of course, the third time I was not able to do it because I couldn't walk. So I was unfortunate because that was the one that I was really looking forward to being around. And so we've had two conferences right in a row. One, the NARC conference, and then the other one was the rail conference, freight conference. So those are over now, and we can have a little rest, with what's going on. I do have this Link Us book. I don't know if anybody else has gotten this. Mayor might have picked one up. We could potentially leave it here, so if you would like to look around at it. It has everything to do with the Link Us, and it's going to be I think this is going to probably be going forward in the fall to be put on the ballot, I do believe. And it's, I think it's got a real good chance of passing and making this community action plan come together. So other than that, I have nothing else to say.
Thank you. Convention and Visitors Bureau, Ms. Padova.
Thank you. So we're still tying up the loose ends regarding the Blues and Jazz Festival, but it does appear to be a successful weekend. Usually takes a few weeks for everything to be reconciled. But one thing that we do know is that the nonprofit organizations who staffed the beverage booths and admission gates earned nearly $15,000 in stipends and tips. So great fundraiser for the volunteers there for the nonprofit organizations. There will be a volunteer appreciation picnic on Wednesday, July 20th from 5 to 7 in the backyard of the Visit Gahanna Ohio Herb Center. All of the volunteers are welcome. There will be food, games, and prizes. So check that out if you were one of the volunteers. So far this summer at the Ohio Herb Center, they have hosted the Union County Master Gardeners, the Columbus Symphony Women's League, and the Worthington Hills Garden Club. And the gardens of the Ohio Herb Center and Visit Gahanna are in full bloom, so stop by and check those out. That's all I have.
Thank you. School Board, Ms. Bowers.
Yes, just briefly, you'll notice a big change on Havens Corners Road. Lincoln Elementary, demolition of Lincoln Elementary has been ongoing, and I think the majority of the building is down today. So I know a lot of memories and maybe a few tears were shed with people reflecting on good thoughts about their experiences there and their kids' experiences and grandkids. But also a lot of excitement for the new things to come on that parcel. So, that's it.
Thank you. Official reports, Madam Mayor.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Just a couple of things. First of all, our sidewalk program, 2021 sidewalk program. Notices were mailed Friday to parcels that where defects were identified. Letters for parcels for which no defects were identified, I believe, are going out today or tomorrow. But last Friday, the 1st, again, the notices for defects went out. The notice actually is about a 3 to 4 page letter. It provides details on the timeline, if they want to appeal, if they want to request a remarking of their sidewalk, how they can opt out, et cetera, what to do. The letter also contains information as to where they should direct questions. The email is sidewalks@gahanna.gov or calling the engineering division at 342-4050. But if you need that, you should get questions from residents about that. If you could direct them to the engineering division to answer those questions or to help those folks out, that would be great. Parks Master Plan. As you know, we are undergoing a refresh of the Parks Comprehensive Master Plan that was done back in 2005, 2006. It was 2005 was the first facilities assessment. 2006 was the last full Parks Comprehensive Master Plan. That project has been underway. Director Farrell has been leading that. Random households throughout Gahanna were mailed a hard copy of a survey soliciting feedback from residents about how they use our parks, how they use our trails, what they would like to see. We will have an online survey that's available. The consultant that we are using, Pros Consultant, who actually did the 2006 master plan, is the consultant we are using. So they have crafted the survey. They are the ones implementing that. That online survey will become available next Tuesday, a week from today, July 12th. So we will be pushing that out on social media as well. But as of next Tuesday, the online version will be available, but we wanted to give the hard copy folks just a little bit of a chance to get a head start in answering that as well. And not to belabor some talking points, but I'm just going to speak to the 4th of July event weekend that we just had. Our staff was pretty tired this morning, but it was quite a wonderful weekend in Gahanna. From the fireworks event on Friday night, it's amazing when you go on Facebook and you see nothing but positive comments. It was fantastic. The display was wonderful. The company that we used was a new company this year, extremely professional in all of their operations and how they handled things, thanks to all of those who were able to attend the event on Friday. And then, of course, the parade yesterday. Saw lots of great photos on social media. There was a resident who even created a video that I thought did a wonderful job of capturing the spirit of the event as well. Walking in the parade, it's always great to be able to just see the people lined up. They're just so excited and so happy. And I saw so many kids with candy bags. They came prepared this year. They were ready. And I might have gotten caught in the crossfire of some pretty good squirt gun battles that were happening. Crowd also came prepared for that too. But it was wonderful to see our community come together both Friday and again yesterday, and we look forward to that. From a community organizational standpoint, we had very few issues. Chief Spence, I think we had a couple of maybe just 2 parking issues Friday night, which typically we would have dozens of those, but we only really had 2 parking issues that we had to deal with. Edison had their event Friday night with no issues at all. That involved a lot of planning ahead of time with our police department and the owners of Edison. So all in all, a very successful weekend. It was somewhat disheartening after you spend a few hours in the morning yesterday to go home and turn on the news and see what happened in Highland Park. over the last few weeks, we had some resident reach outs questioning why we had fireworks on Friday and the parade on Monday. That was the answer. What happened in Highland Park was the answer, and the response that we gave to residents before Monday was it's public safety. You know, these types of events where there's a mass gathering of people require a great deal of planning, logistical planning, operational planning, staffing, in order to keep control of the event and to make sure that people are as safe as possible. And in many of these events, I know firsthand, the planning happens year-round. As soon as one event ends, the team meets, they debrief, and they start planning for the next year. And it involves multiple departments. Our Director of Public Safety, our Chief of Police and his department, our Department of Public Service, our Department of Parks and Recreation, my office, we are all involved. I'm aware of every detailed plan that goes out, and they are detailed. Lieutenant Moffett is the special events coordinator for all of those, and his reports on the operational requirements and where resources will be located and all, trying to take into account all of those contingencies, are extremely detailed. It happens for every single event. But no matter how much we can plan, you can never anticipate what goes through the mind of somebody else, and there is always a risk that is involved. With that, you know, I just want to express my sincere thanks, because I sat there watching the news yesterday and I thought about what a wonderful weekend we had just had here, and how blessed we were to our police department that, again, works year-round in planning that event. And our officers were out there, you know, Friday and Monday. It was long, hot. They're wearing about 30 pounds of extra equipment. So, you know, we're in shorts and short sleeve shirts, and they're wearing that 30 pounds of equipment out there, and they still had smiles on their face and helping to pass out candy and making sure the crowd's safe. Our public service team that was out there Friday and Saturday making sure the road closures were appropriately marked to help direct people safely in their vehicles. And of course, our Parks and Recreation Department, how fitting that they kicked off National Parks and Recreation Month with a weekend full of activities that they just spent a year planning, and it was a long weekend for them. They were there all day Friday setting up for fireworks. They cleaned up Friday night. They were back the next morning by 4 a.m. because we had tea times at 8 o'clock on the golf course. And people showed up for their 8 o'clock tea time Saturday morning and didn't even know there was an event the night before. That speaks to the level of dedication that we have of this team here. I told them today they're small, but they're mighty. And they did it with smiles and teamwork and professionalism. So thank you to all of those team members in those departments. Thank you to the residents who came out and enjoyed themselves. And just were wonderful to one another as well. And thank you, Council, for allowing us and supporting these events through the financial budget that you approve every year, and allowing us to be able to present these for the community, because without you guys approving that, we wouldn't be able to do these things as well. So it was a great weekend for Gahanna, and we look forward to many more. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. City Attorney.
Thank you. I'm almost out of breath from that.
And I was slow.
When it comes to legal issues, I believe no news is good news. So I have good news. There's no news.
Thank you for that short report. All right, item I, council comment. Ms. Angelou.
Well, I'd like to thank everybody that, many of you that knew that I had been injured, and I want to thank you for your kindness to me. I plan to have some physical therapy, so hopefully I can walk really well, and I can go to everything next year. I missed every one of these items, and it was just, you know, tears would come to my eyes every day when I'd go, oh no, I can't go another one. So anyway, I'm so happy that everything went really, really well. And I want to thank just you, the people that contacted me. I can't tell you how much it meant. So thank you.
Thank you. Ms. McGregor.
Just thank you to everybody that made the fourth activities possible. It was wonderful. We had, the fireworks were great. I saw them a little bit from afar, and it was a really good show, and I heard lots of positive comments from it. The parade was fun. My granddaughter, Sophia, she's a senior at Lincoln, she rode with me, and it was fun. She's a lifeguard and teaches swimming lessons at Foxborough and is on the swim team. And all the little kids are like, "Hi, Sophia, hi, Sophia." So she enjoyed that. She didn't expect that the kids would recognize her. They're passing out candy, but it was a great day to see everybody out enjoying. And it was hot, but the humidity was not high, so this was probably one of the more pleasant weather-wise parades I've been to in 40 years. That's all.
Thank you. Mr. Weaver.
Thank you, Mr. President. Not to sound like a broken record, but also enjoyed the past weekend, from the fireworks to the parade to the red, white, and blues block party on Saturday down at Creekside. A special shout out to my better half and my niece Ella, who's going to be playing softball at Lincoln in the fall. So her candy tossing arm got some good practice on at the parade. Want to wish everyone a happy belated 4th, and just echo my thanks to our officers, our public safety and Parks and Rec department. It was wonderful seeing so many city staff and public service as well out and about and enjoying our community as well. So thank you, appreciate it. And I know our officers were definitely sweating and all that in that gear and the black. And I said, "What, can't you put on the shorts with the white shirt?" Apparently not. So I appreciate it, Chief. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Padova.
Pretty much the same. A lot of us were at the same events this weekend, and everybody had smiles on their faces, and it was good to see some of my colleagues in kind of a different setting instead of up here. And going through the parade, I heard some little kids saying, "Oh, there's Coach Mike, there's Coach Mike," and just kind of seeing different views of some of our colleagues here, and the kids, and the parade was a lot of fun. And thank you to Director Farrell, your team, for doing such a great job with everything Friday, cleanup Saturday, all weekend. And also Chief Spence and your team for keeping everybody safe, especially with everything that we found out about later yesterday. So thank you for keeping our city safe.
Thank you. Mr. Schnutzer.
Thank you, Mr. President. At the risk of sounding redundant, I want to extend my thanks to specifically our public safety personnel. I was on site very momentarily Friday prior to the fireworks, and I saw everybody getting geared up to go over to the golf course and start directing traffic and closing down some of the streets. My experience there was great. Thought the fireworks show was excellent. Really incredible grand finale, and then getting out of there was about as smooth as perhaps can be expected when you're trying to navigate thousands and thousands of cars from a single point of entry. And then also thanks to Public Service and Parks. I was out and about early on the 4th, and I saw them out setting the cones up. I don't even, it might have been 7-something in the morning. They were getting ready for it. And so just want to say that it was noticed and it is appreciated, everything that you all do for the community. I thought it was great. Long weekend. I know my family had a lot of fun, and I think just based on the comments that I've heard here, everybody else did too. So thanks again.
Thank you. Ms. Powers.
Yes. First, I'll start by thanking the Gahanna Lions Club for their work on organizing yesterday's wonderful parade. I will echo a huge thank you to Public Service and Parks and Rec staff for all of your hard work this past weekend, throughout the whole weekend. It was so nice to hear nothing but praise and positive comments about the fireworks and the celebration at the golf course on Friday night and the parade on Monday. Your hard work and attention to details was appreciated. I specifically wanted to shout out Golf Course Supervisor Joe Hebdo. Congratulations on getting through the busy weekend so professionally. I know he had a lot of golfers lined up for a lot of tee times, and he did a great job. A huge thank you to our safety services men and women. You also all had a very busy weekend, and my family and I are very grateful for all the hours you put in. It's jarring that it's not surprising anymore that coming home and hearing about another mass shooting, we're asking how many mass shootings were there this weekend, which is not okay. And just coming home and instead thinking about just not being surprised, but just saying, thank God it wasn't my son this time. Switching gears a little bit, I want to mention a little bit about voting. Today was the last day to register to vote for the August 2nd primary, but if you still need to register for the general election on November 2nd, you still have a couple more months. I think I speak on behalf of all elected officials when I say that we certainly encourage and celebrate participation of a fundamental right of our democracy. And I do want to share a little bit about how amazing voter turnout is actually in Gahanna. Voter turnout in the 2020 general election in Gahanna was 82% based on data on the Ohio Secretary of State's website. Gahanna's turnout in the 2016 general election was over 78%. Voter turnout in Gahanna is typically higher than that of both Franklin County and the state of Ohio. Voter turnout in odd-numbered years, which is when we are on the ballot, also exceeds state and county voter turnout. In 2019, the general election had almost 35% voter turnout. There is a real risk of voter suppression when misinformation indicates that no one is voting or that voters don't care. While we have work to do and certainly aspire to 100% registration and voter participation in every year, the voters of Gahanna are engaged and vote at rates that exceed the county and state. And so I wanted to take a moment to recognize that, point out voting statistics across Gahanna, and thank our community for being as engaged as you are. And I'll conclude by quoting Evelyn Beatrice Hall. I do not agree with what you have to say, but I'll defend to the death your right to say it.
Thank you. The only comments I have is it was a wonderful weekend to celebrate our Independence Day celebration. The fireworks, my family sat down in Mom and Dad's sun porch, and we were able to watch in large part the fireworks, and it was fantastic Friday night. And then we, with all my colleagues, participated in the parade, and just getting out and being with the community and seeing the energy and feeling the energy there's something more amazing to that and almost sacred with that. And hearing residents actually just being appreciative that you're there, that means everything in the world. I did have a lot of kids. Sometimes kids would actually group together and hold their bags. And more times than not, I think, Trenton, I think you were with me, we heard trick or treat. And what did I do? I stopped and I said, no, that's not good. I'm not giving out candy for anybody who says that. And then, so I had them actually recite what is the importance of the day. And you're not going to be able to get away with saying, oh, it's July 4th, which some of them did try to do. Said, no. And so, but the parents were very appreciative and supportive of that. So more times than not that we had some really good discussions, if you will, very, very quick. But it was, yeah. Well, these things are important, and truth matters.
No wonder the Boy Scouts were
Yeah, that's right. The Boy Scouts were right behind us, right?
You're having civic lessons.
So no, it's important, but it was also still very positive, and kids got their candy, so I guess that's important, right? So, but very, very deeply appreciative to all the support by the city staff who helped put that together. Mayor, all your staff, all the way down, we could probably list countless people. Director Farrell, everybody inside your department, thank you. And Chief, really, thank you so much, as you heard from my colleagues. Every officer I definitely thanked. Every veteran that had some kind of decoration, I always walk up to them and shake their hands and thank them for their years of service. So. Some of them I'm very grateful. Some are very elderly and were there in a wheelchair, and I still made the time to, walk up to them. So my only other comment is I've been debating about how to, play with this, but we have a birthday that happened very recently. Somebody inside our police department, and so. Chief, I just wanted to say happy birthday publicly. Thank you. Oh, I know. I'm going to hear about it, but it's these things. These are important. So I don't have any further comments at all. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved, sir.
Thank you. We're adjourned.